Hello. I like the new recording in progress message that you've been sticking on Zoom. It just speaks it out.
Oh, I don't get that.
Maybe it's mobile. Maybe it's only for mobile devices at the moment. They should roll it out for desktops. It's a good idea.
No, it's a really, really good idea because it's good to know. But just to reiterate to everyone on the call, network service mesh, our calls are all being recorded, all our public calls. And I just recently discovered that there was an interruption in the service of publishing to YouTube. But I also have heard that there has been progress in the automation of that publishing. And so hopefully we'll get back to that being automatically published to YouTube again. Quick point, often it takes us till about 5 after to get going because we leave time for everyone to turn up. In the meantime, I would highly encourage folks to go to the meeting minutes, which are listed in the Slack, and add yourself as a participant on the call. To the attendees list, that helps a great deal. The other thing I'll point out is that we generally run an open agenda, and by an open agenda, I really mean an open agenda. In that, we generally encourage people to please add things to the agenda themselves. So if you have an item you'd like to talk about, please do add it to the agenda yourself. And if you feel free to add it. Usually when we get down to that point in the agenda, there's some discussion about sort of how the ordering should go. So don't worry overly much about the order you put it in.
In short, our agendas are fungible.
Highly fungible.
But monetarily non-fungible.
True. That's true.
So apparently we're getting a lunar eclipse pretty soon.
Ah.
I don't know if we'll be able to see it from the Bay Area. I need to see where it's going to progress through. But if you enjoy astronomy or astrology, that may be an interesting thing to go see.
Yep. Got it. So, do we have Perry on the call?
I'm not seeing him. Is there a way we can send him the link?
He should be on the at Perry, if I recall correctly, on the CNCF Slack.
I'm not sure how to spell his name. Let me grab the invite link.
Okay, so we're at about 5 after. Shall we get going?
Yeah, let's get started. So welcome to the Network Service Mesh weekly meeting. We have this meeting every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific. We also have a dev issues and PR meeting, which occurs every half hour before this meeting. If you would like to discuss issues and help track or track your work in there, then please feel free to join us. We also participate in a number of other communities. The ones that are probably more interesting to this group include the CNCF, CNF working group, the Cloud Native Network Function Group. And we also participate in the CNCF, formerly SIG Network, now TAG Network, Technical Advisory Group. We've had a rename. And the network TAG is on the first and third Thursday of every month at 11 a.m. Pacific. And the reason for the rename is to differentiate between Kubernetes SIGs, because we have SIG networks and then we have SIG network in the CNCF. And so it's to help differentiate between the two very tightly woven communities.
Yeah, that sounds like a fantastic idea, because I know that has been an endless source of confusion.
And with that, in terms of major events, the KubeCon's call for proposals is now closed. So we are just playing the waiting game now, and we will post information as things come out there. We also have, in terms of major announcements, we don't have any major announcements at the moment. In terms of Twitter, we have added 15 additional followers and are following 75 additional people, and we've put out 53 messages. So our social media community has been very busy. Thank you to that team. You're all fantastic. And we have a variety of different information there. I think Ed would beat me with a towel if I didn't call out the International Mesh Day that they're trying to establish.
So yeah, that's definitely with a towel.
Yeah, so you'll see why if you go look it up. So they're trying to say May 25th, which is that today? It is. So okay. So happy International Service Mesh Day, or Mesh Day rather. With that, we also have all of this information is posted on LinkedIn as well. And in terms of the agenda, the primary item on the agenda is the NSM 1.0 release. But before we jump straight into that, are there any other topics that people would like to add to the agenda? We keep an open agenda, and we're happy to add other topics as well. So. I am not hearing anything. Feel free to add it to the document if you think of something. You can edit the Google document directly. And with that, let's jump into the NSM 1.0 release, which is targeting for June 8th.
Fantastic. So just to remind folks, I know we've discussed this the last few weeks, but it's always good to level set. So our proposed target date is June 8th. It should be noted, I believe that's 2 weeks out from today. So it's definitely getting close. We had a proposed set of feature priorities, starting with, obviously, we need to get a remote IP payload going. It does look like that's going to impact WireGuard. We knew we could always fall back to VXLAN GPE. VXLAN, of course, is the layer 2, the Ethernet payload mechanism by default. It should be pointed out for future purposes that if there are people who have mechanisms that carry either Ethernet or IP payloads that are not the current defaults with VXLAN and WireGuard, we are actively delighted to take additional mechanisms for additional remote mechanisms. So I know we've had folks with interest in SRv6. I know we've had folks with interest in other kinds of tunneling protocols over time. And so I just want to make super clear that just because these are the two examples we're shipping with, we are completely agnostic of the tunnel type as a community. Now, individual people in the community, they are very opinionated, including myself, about tunnels, but as a community, we're agnostic. Interdomain.
By the way, maybe it's just here, but it's a little hard to hear today.
Oh, thank you for speaking up. Let me see if I can figure out what's going on there.
There's at least on this end, it's quite a bit of echo.
Maybe you're on the wrong microphone.
Let me try cycling microphones really quickly. 1 second. Let me make sure that Zoom is actually, because you're actually correct. If I'm on the wrong microphone, it's going to be beyond miserable, because if it sounds like I'm in a cathedral, my office does in fact have the acoustics of a cathedral. So let me try and turn the gain down a little bit on my input volume, see if that helps. No. Yeah, you're right, it is echoey. I'm sorry, I don't know quite why. I'm going to have to do a little bit of investigation to figure that out. Is it functional at this moment?
Yeah, yeah, it's audible.
Okay, so thank you so much for letting me know. You never know how you sound until someone points it out. Okay. So interdomain was the next priority, floating interdomain. The P2P multi-point enhancements were definitely a priority in my mind. That starts to get to the place where things are a little uncertain, and it's getting those in for 1.0 is getting iffier and iffier. That said, I feel strongly we want to get them in as soon as possible. So definitely no later than 1.1 would be my thought. And then scale from 0 was on the list as well. In terms of testing priorities, we want to have testing across all the major clusters, package GKE, AKS, and EKS. It turns out that right now, things are working across GKE, AKS, and EKS. There is something that's currently being tracked down with packets. We're not quite sure what. But it's definitely good news that we've got reliable working stuff across all those clusters. Anyone who's ever tried to do networking work across the public cloud, there's an endless array of tiny details about how that stuff happens at a low level that you've got to make sure that you're not screwing up. Composition testing, which is the basic sort of like the classic example of I've got a client that goes through a firewall and into something else. You can compose these things. Chaos testing, which is testing our healing functionality. Performance testing, scalability testing, continuous upgrade testing. It's very likely that these are the 3 that we'll get to in this release, just judging by where things are going, unless someone steps up to really pick up some of these other ones as we go into 1.0. And in terms of release mechanics, we do need to update documentation on the website. And there was a proposal we discussed last week for doing a release repo as a mechanic for doing a release. We may have to do this release manually. It just depends on who steps up to do what work. So if doing some of the release repo work is interesting to you, there's a real opportunity to contribute there, and I would encourage you to do so. So that's just what we talked through before. Any questions or comments or sort of discussion around that? Cool. So I know, Denise, would you be willing, I know you shared this a bit in the PR issues meeting, would you be willing to share sort of what the XORG team is working on and where they think these things, what their work stands vis-a-vis getting the 1.0 release out?
Yes, hello everyone. Yes, I'll share the link. So currently we have the next plan for the release. So we plan to provide interdomain support. Also, we plan to provide floating interdomain support, but without MD example. Also, we will provide part of healing testing with examples for Kubernetes. But some stuff from the healing will be landed after release, because we found many issues related to healing. The next thing, it is NEC composition. We already working with firewall example with multi-repo. And we also we also plan to provide MD example after the release. So currently we are focused on functionality of firewall. Also, we are very close with topology aware scale from zero. It is mostly done. As I know, Daniel is already working with Kubernetes example for this. And finally, we'll provide WireGuard stuff, WireGuard improvements, and WireGuard example. So as I know, we'll need to regenerate GoVPP to get our WireGuard improvements from VPP. So do you plan to do regeneration of GoVPP for our WireGuard's improvements?
Yeah, this was actually a part of the comment that I made in the last call, which is Artem right now is getting the WireGuard improvements up into master in VPP. We have to date been running on a slightly patched version of VPP 2009. It's not clear to me whether we will have the time to upgrade to a more recent version of VPP before the release. And so we will need to get a patch for the WireGuard improvements for VPP 2009 that we can pull into GoVPP. The good news is, and I can sync up with Artem about this offline, the GoVPP repo that we use that generates the Go binding and also generates the matching containers with the set of patches that are there was intentionally designed to be a forkable repo, meaning that you can fork it and add your own patches and do other things with it, and it just works. And so it should be very doable for Artem to push a PR to that repo to add the WireGuard improvements as a patch. But again, feel free to reach offline over Slack and we can talk about the details of that. But it was intended to be very easy. I've had some preliminary reports that it's very easy, but you never really know how easy a thing is until people try it.
Okay, cool. So that's it from my side.
Cool. Let me go ahead and reshare the agenda then. So back to you, Frederick.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. Can you hear me?
You're very faint.
Is it okay now?
You're much improved.
Okay. Yeah, I am Perry here. I am working with Ericsson. As many of you know, we started working on OVS forwarder that is going to be based on new NSM framework. So that will support both the kernel and OVS hardware offload with those features. So since last week, we started working on some enhancements in the upstream SDK repositories, because those are all needed for OVS forwarder. So we had one VNA related PR in SDK and SDK VPP repositories. So those got reviewed and it got merged now. And apart from that, we have few more PRs raised across different SDK repos like SDK Kubernetes, SDK SROV, and SDK kernel. Like the reviews are ongoing, like that is going good. Yeah, so once these reviews are merged, then we are going to work on OVS forwarder. So then like this might go on a separate repo under a network service mesh. So that is the plan right now.
Okay, that's actually fantastic. So I previously understood that the plan was that you were going to start at a different organization with your repo, but if you would like to start a network service mesh, I'm actually quite supportive of that. The question becomes one of sort of naming convention for the repo and finding a name that actually works for the existing set of patterns we have, but also works for you folks who are proposing the repo name. So do you have any thought on proposed repo name?
Yeah, a name like this is similar to other forwarders. Like that will be like a CMD forwarder OVS. So that will be the name of the, yeah, this will be the repo name that we are thinking of. Yes.
I think that's a fantastic idea. And if it lands in the network service mesh repo, then we can tie it with the rest of our CI/CD system as well.
One other question I do have, which is, do you also need an SDK repo?
Yes, yet like because we have few things related to OVS specific code. We have some few chain elements. Yeah, that is specific to OVS, correct.
Oh, and that's absolutely fine and fantastic. I'm just making sure that we capture the detail. And do you have, so a couple of questions that come to mind is, do you have a notion of when you would want to start working in these repos? And who are sort of folks who specialize in these repos who should be added as repo-specific committers as we begin?
Yeah, actually, like right now, like we have the CMD forwarder OVS repo. Right now, that is in my private GitHub. Maybe once we have all this upstream enhancement to be merged, then like I will adopt this repo to use those code changes. So once it's ready, then I can move it to Nodix because that is our working project. So from there, like we can move it to network service mesh.
Okay, so does that capture the thought?
Yes. Right, yeah.
Okay. And is there anyone other than you who is actively working on this stuff in the specifics? Typically what we do is when we have a repo that has a particular set of people who are sort of very focused on it, and we did this before with the NSM operator, is you will give them sort of committer style rights on that repo in addition to the sort of general network service mesh organizational committers.
Yeah, actually,
so obviously that would be you, but is there anyone else?
Yeah, actually, when we started working on this, like we had a Demetrius who is in the call. So we were working together on the monolithic repo while implementing OVS forwarder. Maybe we can give Demetrius as a committer to these repos. So whenever he is available, you can come on.
Did I pronounce Demetrius? Did I spell Demetrius' name correctly?
So D-I-M-I-T. D-I-M-I-T. Yeah.
I can write it, Ed. No worries.
Oh, okay. There we go. Now I see it. Yes. Now that you spoke up, I've got your name spelling.
It's with an O. Dimitrios is the official one. Dimitris is just the name that different people just use to address me because it's easier. Yeah,
that
no
would be
problem.
super helpful.
No problem.
And if you could both add yourself, make those links to your GitHub accounts, that would be super helpful. Because inevitably what's going to happen is we're going to set these repos up in network service mesh. sometime at 2 o'clock in the morning. And the question is going to be, okay, so what were their GitHub user accounts again? So that would be very helpful. No, I'm excited that this is going so well. This is good. Cool. Back to you, Frederick.
Yeah. Thanks.
Fantastic. Well, are there?
Should I put my GitHub account underneath that bullet in the, or should I
You
put
can
it
put it under the
somewhere else?
bullet. You can make your name in that one a link to your GitHub user page.
Okay.
Either one works just fine.
Okay. Thanks. I'll do that.
So.
Okay, so thank you very much. And with that, are there any other topics that people would like to discuss? If not, then I want to thank everyone for your time, and we will see you all again at the same time next week. Take care.